Hey folks, welcome and welcome Kerry Young. It's very
Ah,
cool to have you in the broadcast studio with me.
thank you.
I hope I can share this. Kerry's just come off the golf course. In fact, how did you do on the golf course?
I'm quite happy. I'm striking the ball very well. I didn't score very well, but I hit some fantastic shots, and I'm
Oh, well
pitching
done.
very well. So that's very nice.
So, golf player and novelist, we're going to be diving in today to talk about some of Kerry's early experience writing her first book, a little bit about how you can put your own story into your character, and also rejection, because I think that's a subject that you talk so well about, Kerry. So, if you're happy, what I'd love to do is to go right back to the beginning, because I know that you were writing non-fiction before you wrote Pow, your first novel. So, I'd love for you to talk about the moment that you knew that you were going to write a novel and how that inspiration came to you.
Okay. Well, it all goes back much further than that. It goes back to like when I was about 17, 18, and I said to my mum, I'm gonna. I don't know if you heard that. I'm going to quit my email so they don't keep dinging at us. I said to my mum something. I don't even know why I said it to her about something about wanting to write. And I don't know why I said it because I don't think I'd barely read a book by then. I don't think I actually read a novel until I was about 18. So God knows why I decided to say that. Anyway, I said that and she said, "Oh no, dear." She said, "You can't." I said I was going to be a journalist and she said, "Oh no, you can't do that." She said, "Only a very few people make it. You'll end up covering the vicar's tea party and you won't enjoy that. I think you should get a job, get a proper job, be a nurse or a teacher, and then you can write in your spare time, and then you can do that." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So my sister's a nurse or was a nurse, and I don't think I have the bedside manners for that. So I'll be a teacher. So I went to learn to be a teacher, but never did it because during the time I discovered youth work and
Yeah.
fell in love utterly and completely over the heels in love with being with youth work and being a youth worker. So that's what I was doing, and I was writing a lot about youth work.
Yeah.
So by the time I kind of got to the idea of a novel, I'd written a lot of non-fiction, and it was
Okay.
all about youth work. So here's my rocking chair moment. So my rocking chair moment happens when a friend of mine said to me, "Imagine you're 93." I don't know why she said 93. "Imagine you're 93 and you're sitting in your rocking chair in front of the fire. Is there anything in your life, if you hadn't done it,
Mm.
you'd regret?" And without thinking, a little bit like telling my mother I was going to be a journalist, I think, without thinking, I just said, "Write a novel." And she
Mm.
said, "Well, you better get started." And
Mm.
that's how it started. So I was like, "Oh, yes, okay, then I'm going to write a novel. And I'm going to write a novel that someone will publish." So it was a test. I wasn't ever going to self-publish because that was the test, that I
Okay.
could write something of a quality that somebody would publish.
Yeah.
So that's when I got started. So I got started. It took me 7 years to write Power. Power was published in 2011.
Okay.
So what's seven from now? 2004,
Yeah.
2003. I started
2000.
writing Power in 2003. And
2000.
because I had no idea what I was doing, I kind of
Mm.
wrote a sort of, it wasn't really fiction what I was writing. It was more about, there was one point when Bloomsbury asked me if I'd ever had a different working title for Power. And I cheekily wrote back the email. I went, "Oh, yes, it was called A Social and Political History of Jamaica, from British colonialism to American fiscal policy in the Caribbean." So that
Catchy.
was that really catchy. That was a really catchy title. But that was the first version of Pow. And if anybody who's read it realized that it changed a little bit since then.
Yeah. Actually, Pow wasn't the first book. This was the first one I read
All right.
because they're all interlinked. But what's really interesting is you can read them in any order,
Mm-hmm.
but what's lovely is the way that they do piece together.
Mm-hmm.
So this is interesting. Let's go back, Kerry, because you said the first version sounded quite non-fictiony. So how did you go from telling something that you understood or writing in a non-fiction way that you'd gotten used to then shifting into fiction? So how did you take that non-fiction and shift it into fiction?
Well, even I knew that that wasn't fiction. You know, even I knew that what I'd written wasn't fiction. So I was like, well, oh, this isn't fiction. How can you write? How can you make this fiction? So I tried to think. You know, I always say to people, write the story that's burning in your heart. You know, that's how I said. They say, what's your advice to new writers? Write the story that's burning in your heart. So I searched my heart for the story that was burning in it. And I came to England at the age of 10. My mother brought me here with my brother and sister, not in the circumstances described in Pau, but in circumstances where my father was left in Jamaica. And I was very close to my dad, so that really bugged me that I never got to say goodbye to him. So it's like when I say, oh, well, what do you care about? I care about Jamaica. I cared about the fact that being Chinese Jamaican in England at that time, someone's at the door, but I'm not going to answer it. Being Chinese Jamaican in England at that time, nobody knew that there were Chinese Jamaicans. Everybody thought that African heritage Jamaicans were Jamaican. So I was very like, people would go, oh no, you can't, you're not Jamaican, you can't be Jamaican. So that was an issue for me about Chinese Jamaican, the relationship with Chinese Jamaicans in Jamaica. Yeah. And then I said, well, about my dad, having not said goodbye to him, he died 4 years after I arrived here. So I said, okay, well, that's it. That's the story that's burning in my heart. It's all of the politics that we said and all the politics that I brought from youth work because my role in youth work, I was working with girls and young women. So there's lots of issues about sexism and racism and all that. So all of those issues, plus all the politics of the whole Jamaican political thing, plus the Chinese Jamaican thing, plus my father. So when my mum read the first draft, well, probably the third draft by the time, but when my mum first read it, she said, I understand where you got the idea for Power, she said, but your father wasn't anywhere near as successful or as clever or as funny. So I just thought, oh, you know, they say I think they say write what you know. So I just thought, well, this little guy, and he was only a little guy, he's going around Chinatown and he's up to all sorts of bad deals, really. And even a child of 5 can see that the police don't usually come to dinner. I mean, there's something is happening here. And so what happened is that I kind of took these half memories of a child, like a 5-year-old, who never really understand. You don't really understand what's going on. Yeah. And then, hang on. So this person's quite.
While Kerry has left, Mukesh, I'm just going to bring up your question here. You're asking.
No, sorry, my neighbour. I don't know why he's knocking on the door.
Oh, Kerry, I was just answering Mukesh's question while you disappeared. So can I get this book? So I've put a link in the comments of your Amazon page, Kerry, where anyone can get any of the books that we're talking about. So all 3 of Kerry's books have been published by Bloomsbury, and there's a link in the comments of Kerry's Amazon page. You can get them all. And they are fantastic.
Okay,
so come back. You're 5. You can sort of see what's going on.
So you're 5 years old. You can sort of see what's going on, but you don't really, and you certainly don't understand what the heck's going on. So what I did is that as an adult, I made up, right? So actually, what goes on in Power is probably not the truth of anything because, first of all, a child doesn't understand. Secondly. The child misremembers however many years, years and years later. And then an adult has made up what they think might have been going on, which conceivably was never going on anyway. But actually it made for a good story. So the very idea that you can have this little Chinese guy going around Kingston, Jamaica, during that time, because the book starts in 1938. During that period, 38, it runs up to 1980, up to all sorts of bad business. That's where it came from. But the funny thing is that one of the things that people always say, I mean, Pau, when you read between the lines of Pau, he's up to all sorts, really. But everybody loves him. There's something about him They do. They just
Yeah,
absolutely
so
fall in
true.
love with him. And it's like he seems to be able to get away with basically anything. And he is really, really funny. I remember
Mm.
when I was writing it, sometimes I'd be at dinner and I'd start laughing, and my family would go, "What are you laughing at?" And I'd say, "Oh, it's Pow. He's just told me." He's just told me this thing, and it's really, really funny. And because he is very, very funny.
I think this is a wonderful example, Kerry, of how, you're taking this kind of melting pot of all your experience, but it's liberated because you're dancing in a fictional world. And so you're letting that kind of imaginative instinct also creep into the story. And so you're having this dialogue with Pow, who's an imaginary character, but informed with real life foundation. And perhaps that's what makes him so likable, because he seems so real and so, so wrong, but also we forgive him for that, because we know what it's like to be tempted. We know what it's like to have that naughty streak. And so, I mean, I feel that with all of your characters. I felt it with Gloria too, in the other books, in the whole
Mm,
sequence.
mm,
There's something so real about them. They're not these kind of stock cookie cutter
mm.
characters.
Yeah, they're completely three-dimensional, probably five-dimensional.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and they are real to me.
Mm.
It's like, to me they're real people. And I remember I got to the end. Well, it was when I got to the end of Pal, and we didn't know at that time that we were going to do Gloria and Show Me Magic. It was entirely unclear what was going to happen. And in actual fact, in whichever version that went to Bloomsbury, he actually dies at the end. And it was Helen Garner Williams, who's my editor at Bloomsbury, who said, "Oh, I don't think he should die. This has got more. This has got more to come."
Yeah.
So we kind of rewrote it. But when I originally had written that he died, as it were, I was really upset. I was crying because to me,
Mm.
all these characters that I'd lived with for 7 years, like, not just him, but like Judge Finley and Hampton and all these people, I was going to miss them. So then when they said, "Oh yes, we're going to go and do Gloria," I said, "Oh yes, that's fantastic," because now I get to live with these people
Yeah.
again, for
Mm.
some period of time. So then that took 2.5 years to do Gloria, and then 3.5 years to do Show Me a Mountain, because my mum was dying. And so I had some time off, caring for her. But
Yeah.
during all of that time, of course, I was with these people who are they're real to me,
Yeah.
um, you know.
And I think such a great lesson and example to anyone watching who's thinking, what level do I need to take this whole writing business? And it's like, here's Kerry, who believed so much in the characters that she'd made up, that she was crying at the thought that they were going to die. Like, that's the relationship that we want to have with our works in progress, because we are going to want to come and interact with them every day and make progress with them.
I think you have to. I think if you want to make the character real for the reader, they have to be real for you.
Hmm.
So it's like sometimes, because I work a lot, like mentoring people who are writing the first book or whatever it is, and I say you have to inhabit the characters, and if what it's going to take is that you've got to go and dress and parade around like you are whoever it is that's a character in your book, to make yourself be the character, make the character real. You have to make that character real, because if they're not real to you, if they're just pawns to you, because sometimes what you get, and I think particularly with novice writers, because we don't know what we're doing. This is the
Hmm.
first time, of course, you don't know what you're doing. That you have this idea of a story, and what you've done is that you've turned the characters into like pawns, and you just move them around in order to demonstrate whatever story it is,
Hmm.
you know. But if you do that, you cannot engage the reader, because the reader cares about the characters. The reader wants to invest in the characters and say,
Hmm.
"I care about this person, even if I care about them because they're so terrible and I want to see them get their comeuppance." There is that, it's not all love, but sometimes it's
Yeah.
hate. But
Hmm.
you have to make the reader care about the character
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
order for them to want to carry on reading the book, because they're not as fascinated as the comings and the goings and people getting kidnapped and everything. They're not as fascinated by that. They care about the character. So
Mm.
if you can't bring that character, or someone called it a kaleidoscope of characters in my books, but if you can't bring those characters to life for the reader, then
Yeah.
that's you can't
Yeah.
you can't make them read your book.
let's let's go back to Pal, because we've talked about you being at Bloomsbury and your editor saying, no, we got another book in this, like let's have Gloria. So we've gone from, hey, I had this idea to write a book, to now I'm being published by Bloomsbury. So I want to just backtrack, and I want for you to just give us a sense of what happened when you finished Pal and you were like, right, I'm now, because you said you wanted to get traditionally published, you wanted to have that accolade or that validation. So what happened when you decided to then send Pal to agents? Talk us through that experience.
So the thing about it was that I wanted to prove to myself that I could write a work of fiction that somebody else would publish. So me publishing it myself didn't prove that I could. I had done that, so that's why it had to be like that. And I'd always said, well, and if they only print 2 copies, one for me and one for my mum, that's it. I'm happy. So I finished what I thought was probably about the 3rd draft, because even I knew. I think it'd be interesting if I don't think I've even got, if I read the very first draft now, I think I'd be appalled at myself. But anyway, so I thought, okay, right, now it's time to send it to agents. But again, I didn't really know what I was doing, so it's like, I didn't know that you didn't just send it to 24 agents all at once. The things that you don't know. So anyway, time to send it to agents. So I sent it out to various agents, basically every agent who I thought might publish it. So it's like every literary fiction sort of agent. So, you research them a bit. You don't send it to people who only publish children's books or whatever it is. You do a bit of research. But I basically sent it to everybody I thought might be interested in the Writers and Artists Yearbook, which is the Bible, of course. When you're going out, when you trying to do that, that's the book you're working from. And some people I never even heard from, but I got rejected by every single agent in the book. And some of them, they just sent, one person even got the title wrong, but some of them just sent a postcard that said something like, I didn't love it, or it doesn't fit our list. I mean, that was the full extent, if you like, of the feedback.
Yeah.
And it was hopeless. So there was a lot more crying that went on. And there's a lot of crying involved with trying to sell your first book. A lot of crying went on. So I got rejected. And then I thought, no. So I rewrote it. When I got to about version 4 or 5, I discovered the literary consultancy, because I didn't know about. So I sent it to TLC. I sent the whole thing to TLC to be read. And it was read. And I got some very, very good feedback. Like 12 pages of feedback, and I made all the changes. It was the guy who read it. It's a guy called Christopher Walken. He's an Avon tutor as well, and I met him like years later, and I jumped up and go, oh my god, you're the person who read that. Wakelin, not Walken, he's the actor.
I was going to say, I was like, is she talking about Chris
the actor? Okay. Wait, Chris Wakelin. And so anyway, I made all the changes that he said, and I sent it all out again and got rejected again. So twice round I got rejected.
Yeah.
And then
let me just pause you there. So what was it? Because again, sometimes a writer can get rejected in round 1 and they're like, oh, this sucks, I'm not good enough. Like, what was it that got you back on the horse, so to speak, to go again?
2 things. One was trying to write a proof to myself that I could write a work of fiction that somebody was prepared to publish.
Yeah.
And the other one, which is probably the bigger driver, was writing a gift to my father. It was, you see, because what's the story that's burning in your heart? It was that I'd left Jamaica, I'd never said goodbye to him, and he died. Okay. So Pal, I always say, was a gift to my dad of a life that was longer, because I mean, in Pal, he goes on to be a ripe old age. My father died at 40 something. Do you know what I mean? Like a life that was longer, and certainly more successful as a gangster, a life that was longer and better than the one he actually had. So it was a gift to my father. So it's like, well, I can't stop. I can't stop until somebody's actually proved to me 40 years later, no, you're not going to be able to do that. But 7 years is a very short time to try to keep a promise like that to yourself. So that's what kept me going. And
Beautiful. So round two,
around two, I get rejected all over
rejected again.
again. In the process of it, one of the agents at Conville Walsh, and this is important because I now am at Conville Walsh. One of the agents at Conville Walsh said that he thought it showed promise. So I sent him another version, and we got to a point where he said, "Look, I just can't keep reading it. You got to whatever." So I stopped, and I was very disappointed because I wanted to be at Conville Walsh. Um, and so what happened? So a friend of mine said to me, right, I know someone who's just started up as an agent. She hasn't got any other customers, all right, because she just started. Maybe she'll take you on because she hasn't got any customers, so you have got an agent. And she took me on. So Susan Yearwood took me on, and Pow plus Gloria on a 2-book deal was the first sale that she made.
So you went from 2 rounds of agents saying no to then getting a 2-book deal.
At
And
Blue.
Powell was shortlisted for the Costa First Novel
And
Award.
then Pow was shortlisted to Costa
So
First,
I
right?
think it really goes to show, like, imagine if you had, for people listening, imagine if Kerry had given up. She wouldn't have got to, now you're on your 4th book, and you've got a beautiful history of writing books. But I think what stands out to me, Kerry, is having that larger goal. Like, it wasn't just, I want to get published. It was like, I want to prove something to myself by getting published, but also I've got this gift for my dad. So I
Yeah.
think that larger, you've done coaching in your experience in your youth work. That value of having that larger, important, values-based goal.
Well, because when I run workshops, and this, I always like, why does it matter? I'm always like, why does it matter? It isn't enough to just go, oh, I want to see my name on the cover of a book. That isn't enough. That's not what gets you through 7 drafts. That's not what gets you, writing at the top of your game. That is, they used to call it vanity press, didn't it? Something like that. But that's a different thing. It isn't enough to just want to say, I want my name on the cover. Okay. Yeah. There must be a reason why. The reason why was my dad. Why does it matter? Why is it that you writing that story now matters to you? Because it's that bigger picture that you're talking about, that bigger sense of purpose that actually gets you through the various drafts. Because when you write your first novel, you've got no idea what you're doing. So by the time you get to number 4, you think you have half an idea of what you're doing, but certainly at number 1, you got no idea. You've got no idea, and you've got no idea of what it actually takes to produce a publishable manuscript. So you've got to have a bigger plan than just saying, "Oh, I just want to get my name on the cover."
Yeah,
I want to put it out there.
And also, what I heard from your story was the point at which you then started to get help and feedback from people. So you had that relationship with Chris Wakeling, who was giving you feedback, and then you also had that relationship with the first agent at Conville and Walsh. So I think that collaboration, again, like, the mistake I think that young writers make is that not only are they writing a book and they've never done it before, but they're also trying to do it on their own.
Yes. Yeah, and which is the hard bit, because you climb up this mountain on your own, and when you get to the top, after you've struggled for 7 years, hanging on by your fingernails to get to the top, then there's all these people going, "Oh yes, I'm your editor. I'm the assistant editor. I'm the publicist. I'm the assistant publicist. I'm the publicist assistant, publicist assistant." And "Oh, thanks." And it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. But maybe it would have been nice to have some help on the way up the mountain.
Yeah, I hear you.
So everything, like people like like your organization, everything that people in the industry do, to actually help, people like TLC. What would I have done if there hadn't been TLC? Arvon, all of these, what you're doing, all of these things actually help writers to figure out how to write the best thing that they can write at this point in time.
Yeah. What would you say? Because you're saying it took you several years to write Pow, and then Gloria was a couple of years. So what was the difference there? What enabled that second book to come faster, if you like?
a deadline. Because by that point, Bloomsbury is like, right, okay, you have to produce this by then.
Okay. Yeah.
So 2.5 years, a deadline. I had a better idea of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the books are linked, I had some of the story. Because they're linked over the same time period. So I already had Gloria because she was in PAL. I didn't have her fully formed, but I had her. I had Faye because I had PAL. So a number of the characters, obviously there's new characters in Gloria and as there are in Show Me a Mountain, but a lot of them, if you've read all the books, a lot of them are recycled, right? Yeah. But some of the things that I like about recycling people is that if you take people like, for example, Faye Wong in Show Me a Mountain is not the person you thought she was when you read her in PAL. And if you take someone like Isaac Dunkley, when you meet Isaac in Gloria, you think, oh my God, this guy is like, is a complete sleazebag. But when you meet him in Show Me a Mountain, you realize that the guy is not that, Yeah. So that's one of the things that I love to do, is that I like to surprise the reader by giving them the same person, but it's not the person that they expect. Because that's what I think about. That's the other thing about bringing yourself to the page, because that's something I think about people, is that people are all sorts of things. Your first impression of someone isn't necessarily who they are. That's in real life, right? When you get to know the person, you think, oh no, I was wrong about him. He's not what I thought. So I like doing that on the page as well. But it's, again, it is bringing yourself, what matters to you, and your experiences, and what you think's important, your values, if you like, and what you think's important, etc. Bringing all that to the page in a fictionalized way, because that's what makes it real. That's what makes the reader interested.
What's so interesting about what you said then is bringing it to the page in a fictionalized way is what makes it real. Like, it's so ironic, isn't it? And it made me think of how I feel that when someone reads fiction, well, certainly my own experience, when I read fiction, I'm always interested in my mind, like, oh, I wonder if this is actually real.
Yeah. So but it's funny because my mother hated my father, really. And the funny thing was that in the process of writing PAL, of which she was very involved as an informant, because, it's like, oh, Mum, in the war in Jamaica, what were the shortages? All this constant thing. During the writing of PAL, she actually started to like my father a little bit more than she'd liked him in real life, because she was liking, mad.
Oh my God, I love that.
That's completely mad. But then she started saying things about my father. Like one day at dinner, she went, oh, your father had a beautiful singing voice. And he did. It was a beautiful tenor voice. And I thought, my God, I've never heard you in 55 years, whatever it is. I have never heard you say one positive thing about him. But now, because PAL's busy singing in the book, because in Show Me a Mountain, isn't he? He's busy singing Roses of Picardy, which is apparently one of the songs my father used to sing. My mother's now like, oh yes, your father had a beautiful singing voice. So she actually started to like my father more. And she spent her whole life hating him. She started liking him more because she liked PAL, which is that bit about making what's fiction real enough for her to decide that she liked him a bit better. It's all mad. But, it is right. The fiction brings a reality. It's like what you're saying about my characters feeling like they're actually real people.
Yeah. And I think also it sounds like you were enabling your mum the freedom or the space to see the past differently. And I think fiction does that as well. It gives us this doorway to see the world, or to see life, to see things slightly differently.
Well, I think she started seeing him through the rose-tinted spectacles that I see him through, because he was truly a scoundrel. So I think it's because it was me romanticizing him, and I think she just got caught up in it.
Kerry, you rock.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming into the broadcast studio with me. It's been It's been such a treat. I love our conversations. I love talking writing with you. And I know that people are going to have taken so much value just from you sharing that journey of rejection and like having that bigger goal, having that meaning, and also the importance of like writing that story that's burning within you. And that if you want, you can fictionalize it. And the irony is that the story can then become more real as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if there's anything else, like if anything I didn't ask you, or any kind of parting word that you would just love to leave people? If you think people watching this, they might have a book in them, they might not have had the rocking chair moment, what piece of advice or parting words would you like to say to an aspiring writer?
Well, it is that. It is write the story that's burning in your heart. They say that you never know if you're going to get a second book, right? Because if the first book is rubbish, nobody's going to publish a second book. So don't save it for the second book. Okay, don't save it for the second book, because that may or may not happen. Write the story that's burning in your heart. If you think to yourself, I'm only ever going to publish one book, just imagine that. Then write the story that's burning in your heart. The other thing, somebody else asked me for a couple of quotes the other day. One for writers, and I said, write the story that's burning in your heart. And the other one that I was asked for a quote about writing, and I said, writers write not to explain the world to others, but to explain it to themselves.
So true.
So write the story that's burning in your heart to explain the world to yourself.
Yeah.
You make it matter.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And where's the best place for people to find you? Like on social media? I've put your Amazon page if people want to get your books, but are you online interacting? Like, I know you do editorial work for the TLC, right?
I do editorial work for the TLC. In the last 3 weeks, I've just closed down my Twitter and Facebook pages because I'm fed up with them.
Fair enough.
So you can't find me on social media. I've also just redone my website to take the Twitter and the Amazon links off, and the Facebook links off. So what do people want to find me for? I'm a recluse. I play golf. I keep myself to myself.
So basically, people find you in your books. It's like, if you want to connect with Kerry, but to be honest, it's probably the best way to connect with you.
It's just read the books.
Yeah, just read the books, folks.
I've got a fourth book. I wrote a book during the lockdown.
Yeah.
So I'm got a fourth book. My agent's out doing her stuff, trying to get someone to buy it. Yeah. So just you don't need to know me. You just read the books and enjoy them.
Read the books. So true. Read the books and let Kerry carry on playing golf and writing.
Exactly.
Kerry, thank you so much. It's been a treat.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye. And bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next week.